Hey guys, how y'all doing? My name is Kieran, and this is Fox Off RPG. So today we're going to have a look at a book called The Beyond. This is going to be a preview copy of the book, and we'll just go through this now. I was asked to have a look at it, and I thought it'd be interesting. It's also quite different stuff we looked at before. So, going to think of Cthulhu, X-Files, stuff like that. As you can see, the preview copy, like I said, pages left intention to bank, and there is some placeholder stuff in it. So essentially, in this game, it's going to be, again, think Call of Cthulhu. It's going to be taking place in different time periods. There are a set number of organizations which your characters can join or be a part of from the get-go. You're also encouraged to create your own to fit into the time and the time period you want to play in and the feel you want. You can play in the Dark Ages, or you can play in like 2020. You can play in the Dark Ages, or you can play 100 years in the future from now. So, and the way the game does things, it enables this sort of creation. Example with weapons. With weapons, you're going to be looking at a set of like benefits and modifiers you add to create a sort of a unique weapon. So you can have like a simple bat, or you can have like a magical sword of like sacrifice or something like that, and it's going to be enabled to create this monster creation. Is going to be quite similar. That's one thing I wish there was a bit more of, some more set monsters. There are a few set creatures and stuff like that, but it does enable for a bit more flexibility in what you want to create and have in your game. But anyway, so what's this game about? So again, it's going to be like a horror RPG, semi-survival sort of game. Again, you're going to have limited things you can hold. Your characters are going to be part of an organization which is going to be investigating the Beyond. And what is the Beyond? The Beyond is essentially an outside force trying to impede its way into our universe, our dimension. Again, think more Cthulhu type stuff, but doesn't necessarily be all gross monsters and stuff. It can be like extra dimensional powerful beings and gods trying to break in, trying to corrupt things, take over, kill, maim, whatever the case may be. So we're talking about organizations. There's a few here. The Order of the Infinite Dark, that was founded in the 800s. Wells and Constantine Association, founded in 1853. Again, there's going to be a decent amount of information listed here. You have the North and South American Division, founded in 1910. The Emperor's Heavenly Guard, founded in 1949. And Black Fang Vanguard, founded in 2022. So like I said, you can play this in any time period based on the creation methods for things. So like you're going to go on, like we have missions here. So you're going to have to go on a mission that's going to be given to you by your organization that you're joined with. You're going to have an objective and several secondary objectives. So maybe your objective is there's a disturbance in a small rural community out in the mountains. It's going to be in the winter time. You're going to be closed off from things, and you need to make your way to get there. Okay, you get there. Your secondary objectives could be you need to go to, say, the local inn or hotel. You're going to have to stay there. You also know there's been disturbances in that area. You need to find out what they are, and these clues could lead you towards people of interest. Maybe people have seen things or heard things, and then all these things come together, and you find the disturbance is somewhere in a forest a couple of miles out, and then you go deal with it. That's just something on top of my head real quick. And when your case is solved, you're going to be getting points. So you're going to get experience points. And the experience point, we don't really get experience points. When you do 2 missions, 2 cases closed, you will then level up. Your fate points you have here, these are interesting because you can use these to re-roll dice or fail checks. The dice in this is going to be basically 2d6 for everything for the most part. But if you use your fate points too many times in a mission or a case, you're going to start being noticed by the Beyond. Again, the Beyond can be several different things, and it gives you several examples later on in the book. But you can also create your own. It's quite flexible. So when you use if you use too many fate points, you'll be noticed. But when you get noticed after a case is done, you will then need to do a check, and this is going to be usually like when you're asleep or something like that. And if you fail the check, bad things will happen. And the more you fail, the worse they get, and they could lead to you losing your mind, going crazy, or some negative impact happening in your life and your character dies. So yeah, and then it talks about time. So you're going to be time measured in days, scenes, hours, and rounds. So days, okay, maybe take us 2 days to get to that rural community we talked about. So then we enter into the hotel, and the hotel, that now becomes a scene. You know, then we can go, like, talk to the people at the desk. This is a scene. We're talking. We're playing a situation now. Getting information. And hours will be, again, traveling somewhere locally. It's going to be, maybe it takes us 2 hours or 3 hours to get to that location further out that we talked about, where disturbance is actually going on. And rounds, when we get to this location, we then have combat or some other situation, which then goes into rounds. So say we have 4 characters. All do our actions, and it goes to the enemy action. There, the round's done. Simple, straightforward, like we're used to. Now, character creation. I did have a bit of a problem with character creation. It's just the layout. So we go down here. It gives an example of character creation. It talks about how it's conceptual in nature. So you're basically going to give out a bunch of ability points, different scores. You're going to choose your sort of background archetype, and then you want to come up with a sort of a little bit backstory. Okay, but my problem was here, because it talks about a load of numbers. I'm not sure where they're coming from or what they are, and it gives an example down here. But then we go down several more pages, another page, and we get to the actual bit of information about how we assign the points. This should be further up, but it is what it is. So we're going to have our core stats. Core stats are going to be body, mind, and spirit. These are going to be for our checks and other stuff, and they can influence our other abilities. So we're going to have a speciality stat, a good stat, and a mundane stat. So let's say we put speciality in body, our good in spirit, and mind can be our mundane. So mundane is like normal everyday person. So within that speciality score, that stat, we can assign a 4, 3, 2, and 1 to aspects, and these are the aspects of body. So you have strength, agility, speed, durability, and humorous. Then we do the same with our good stat, which is going to be a 3, so we assign a 3, 2, and 1. So again, we put that in our spirit, like we said, and then we have a mundane, assign a 2 and 1. Anything else that doesn't get any points, it's obviously a 0. That is simple and straightforward. I just wish it was up higher. And then it gives an example of what these things are, like your strength is your character's ability to lift things, heavy objects, perform athletic feats. Your durability is how much health damage a character can shrug off. Durability is the direct connection between a character's body resistance, which later gets added to the armour to help reduce incoming health damage to keep them alive. So how combat is done is you're going to roll your 2d6. So say if a creature has 10 body resistance, you need to get above a 10. So you're going to roll your 2d6, you're going to then add your weapon and any other bonuses you'll have. If you roll a 10 or more, you'll do that amount of damage. So say if our total was 12, we'll only do 2 points of damage. But then that target is going to be weakened again for the next round. So we have a body resistance that's going to be lower, so we can do more damage. So the more damage you inflict, the more damage you're going to do the next time and the next time, if you're successful. So it's kind of a cool way of doing things. Your humorous is going to be your body's way of healing and avoiding diseases. Charisma is your character's overall social abilities. IQ is your character's general knowledge on almost anything and understanding things. IQ can be responsible for investigation roles or removing traps and picklocks. So it gives an example on what these different aspects are. But again, I just wish that was up here, because then we will then go on to stuff like our backgrounds. So you have your backgrounds, your body backgrounds, you then have mind backgrounds, spirit backgrounds, and other backgrounds. So say if you want for other, you have average. You're not anything special, but you can blend in. You gain a +2 in any aspect and a +1 in any core stat. Okay, so again, we'll look at this other sheet here. Maybe we want to have a +2 in some of our mind stuff because it wasn't great, and we add more into our spirit because we want to do more magical sort of stuff or weird abilities. So that's kind of interesting. And then we're going to come up with our backstory. So say we were the brawler, for example. Maybe we used to be a former fighter or a boxer or something like that. We had a daughter or some kids and a wife, and they were killed in a horrible way, and you saw this thing from another dimension kill them, and ever since then you've been wanting to basically destroy and kill this entity, and that's how you joined the organization that you picked or your GM has for you guys. So that's an interesting way of doing things. Then it talks about health pools. So health is going to be your amount of points you're going to have for your health. Sanity reflects your character's mental health and ability. Stability is going to indicate your character's strength of soul. And then it talks about like the different sort of resistances: BR, SR, MR. So SR is going to be your spirit resistance, and your mind resistance, then your body resistances. So then how you come up with your healing pools. So every core stat has a correlating resource known as a healing pool. Healing pools are representations of how much damage an entity can take before serious damage is done in one of these areas. All healing pools start at 5 naturally. For each point in it, the character will increase the representative healing pool by 5. So your body healing pool, so if you have 4 points in body, you'll now have a total of 25. So you'll have 20 from the body, and you have 5 from starting. You'll never have less than 10, because you have to have at least a mundane in one of these, which is 1 point in your body. Sanity goes to mind, spirit goes to stability. You just add your modifier, multiply it by 5 plus 5. There you go. Simple, straightforward. Magic. So yeah, magic. So you're going to have word pools. So word pools are going to be represented by, again, it comes from your spirit. And if you add any points into it, you're going to have occult, fate, and ancient sort of type of magic. Again, if you have mundane, you're only going to have 1 point in it, which is going to be, again, 5 plus 5. You're going to have a minimum of 10 in your word pools for doing magic abilities and stuff. But if you use all your words up, you cannot do any magic for the next 24 hours, or until you sleep and rest. It has a word list. So word ally, it targets your ally or yourself, and gives the target a +1 placement bonus. So this could be a +1 to attack, +1 to a check, something like that. We just read a few more. So we have mimic, create an illusion of something. A CR easy to see pass through it. A +1 CR per placement. So if you want to have 3 mimics to try and hide something, or make it seem like someone that maybe when your allies is injured, you want to make it look like they're dead to an enemy, something like that. If you add 3 mimic words into it, you have a +3 increase in the difficulty of it by that many points. So I did say if it was a CR5, it's an easy, that's a CR5. You have 3 in it, it's now an 8. The enemies would have to roll 2d6. If they got under 8, then they can't see it, and they assume your ally is dead. So that's kind of cool. It gives them a chance to heal or get back together. So there's a bunch of words here, and how you can use them. So you could easily come up with more if you wanted to, but it's quite a good number here. Damage inflicted on something or someone, damage is 3 times per placement. So it can be very powerful. weapons and armor. Now this is an interesting one, like I said at the beginning. So you're going to have different kinds of weapons. So you have melee one-handed, you have a +2 bonus. It's going to be within the same zone, so you're going to be close. A melee two-handed bonus, it's going to be +2 because you're using two hands. Modifier ban on melee weapons. So you're going to be list a bunch of modifiers down here, as you can see. And obviously you can't have a ricochet, you can't have an aim shot, you can't have rapid fire. You can't rapid fire a baseball bat, like throwing it. You then have one-handed range, two-handed range, and then it has like you can't block, you can't parry with a rifle or a bow, for example. Now the reason why it's done like this is because it has different time periods you can play, and you could play in, again, the Dark Ages, or you can play in 100 years from now, or anywhere between, or further along. So if you want to have just a simple, normal, say baseball bat, just use the baseline here. It says a melee one-handed, you're going to get a +2. But maybe if you wanted like a mace, an ancient mace, okay, and then you add the charging onto it, you will then have a +3 when charging to your rolls. So you're going to have a basically do +3 extra with that. So that's going to be your extra bonus. You have your weapon bonus of +2. It's going to be one-handed weapon plus the charging bonus. It now has a total of a +5. It's going to make it much easier to hit. So you can kind of see how you can create your own weapons relatively quickly, and the more you add onto it, the more special they become. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way of doing things. And then you have your specialities as well. So disarm on a crit, remove the opponent's weapon and move it one zone away. So move it into an extra space next beside him. This game would work quite well at miniatures, so you can see things better for better representation. But yeah, again, we use our mace. Maybe have a crushing speciality to it. On a critical hit, break a bone, apply the cripple state. So maybe we hit a guy in the arm. The arm is now crippled and cannot be used until it's healed. So there's definitely a lot of different ways you can do things. So it gives an example of weapons here. So you have Axe of Psychic Doom. It's a melee, one-handed weapon. It's +2. This distance is the same. It has a modifier of Magic Stalwart and a specialty of Force. Again, these are going to be listed here. And then you have basically a one-handed Jedi's Blaster. That could be like a revolver, or it could be a space gun. So again, you can pretty much create anything. Similar thing is going to happen here with the armor. So you're going to have Breezy, which is basically super light armor. You have light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor, and they each have their automatic amount of resistance they're going to have to things. And then you're going to add your list of modifiers into them. So armor modifier, so battery, increase the whirlpool by 3. Maybe you want to have this on a light character so you can move around a lot. And then they can use more words and move around the area and not be hit as easily, but still have more powers. Cat-like, you have a +1 to agility. Trance and magic, increase occult, fate, or ancient by 1. That would be quite powerful, because that would then add +5 points to your magic pool as well within those areas. So you can see how you can create things quite easily. You have a list of specialities: enhanced vision, iron lungs, juggernaut, basically +5 to your body resistance, makes you super like tanky. It is very interesting how stuff like this is done. I think it works well for the game, but it does require a little bit of work beforehand. But like, if you wanted to say your players find some sort of weapon or armor in the game, it takes 2 seconds to make something fairly easy. The wealth system, so and spending power. So you're going to start off with 7 spending power, okay? And this is going to be used to get different things like medical kits, weapons, and you're going to spend this before you go into a mission. But also includes services like taxiing, for example, for travel and stuff like that. If you want, you can just wave that off and say you're being part of an organization. They're going to bring you near an area, and then you can go from there. That's up to the GM. Maybe you have weapons or items and they need to be fixed. Okay, you then want to spend spending power to fix them or keep them within a good condition. You also can spend spending power on accommodation, so you will heal better. You can then hire people, like say a housemaid, to take care of things, so things will come into disrepair or break like harder to break them. Could have benefits to having someone come over as well. But basically you're going to start off with 7, and each time you level up you're going to gain +1. So level 1 you have 7, level 2 you have 8, level 3 you have 9. But then you can also kind of save them up a bit, but it does have some negative consequences. But eventually you'll gain more. And so we're going to mundane class, so it's going to be 1 point for getting an item or a service, 2 points for acceptable housing, which is basically going to be the most basic housing, so your character can once you're done with a mission, you go home, you're able to rest, and that's it. Item bonus, a +1 may be used to an item, so maybe you have a medical kit, you can then use that medical kit twice instead of once before it's gone. So services that are going to be available, for example, housing, taxi, company guard. So housing, rent a single room or a small living room, has storage for 2 and no guests. With storage for 2 means you can store 2 items. So maybe if you found a cool weapon on a mission, you can store that plus maybe another medical kit. But then by the time you get down to class 3, you can store 4 more items. You have 3 movement zones, so it's going to be quite large. You have service available to you: spies, doctors, therapists, trading services. So spy, you're going to be able to get information about a mission before you go onto it, but it's going to cost more. So things to get better as you go along. The amount of stuff you're able to store, the stuff you have available to you, but also becomes more expensive. Basically, you're paying rent. It's essentially a way of doing things. So it's definitely an interesting thing. How things are done. I think maybe some people will just ignore this and say once you commit a mission, you go home, and that's it. I think a lot of people do that, but if people want to get into it a bit more, they can. And then it talks about storage, like how much an item takes up space. So a one-handed object like a weapon or metal kit is going to take up 1 space. A two-handed weapon or something like that, or object like a gun, it's going to take up 2 spaces. Something half your size, this is going to be a bit more on the GM to decide what is what and how much space is going to take up. And if you want to have something in particular from a mission or something you found, you want to take it back with you, you kind of have to figure it out. And then it talks about services. Like we said, we could get a doctor, a maid, and stuff like that, housekeeper. So a doctor is going to be able to heal you for 10 points. For each upgrade, increases the healing by 4. So if you have a level 2, you're going to have 14 healing. Housekeeper is going to maintain your properties while you're away. You can alert you when any occurrences happen. Upgrade the service above the wealth status mundane will allow the housekeeper to prevent a number of items. +1 plus your wealth class from getting runes. So maybe you have a weapon or something that might degrade over time, or its magical energies in it are causing things to break down. Your housekeeper essentially keep it from getting bad. And it's not the same thing with spies, taxi, therapists. Again, I think a lot of people will ignore this side of stuff because it might be just, I want to keep it more like an episode. Here's the next episode of X-Files sort of thing. They might do it like that. So it's going to be up to the GM how they want to do things, as always. And it has different modifiers as well to go along with it, like it is with everything. Like you can have an aquatic setting property, maybe a beachfront property, something like that. Flying enables vertical movement. This is when you get into more weird stuff. So your house or your property, it now has a vertical movement. You have medical labs, you can create medicines, guns, you can add range weapons to this property. Guest room, you increase the guest capacity by 1. So maybe one of the other players could come along, or you could have an apprentice, which you can get, which would then accompany you and could stay with you, like they're being you're acting like their handler. And it talks about weather. So you're gonna have like normal clear weather. You're gonna have no negative checks to anything. If it's gonna be at level 2, you're gonna have a -1, which you can think of fog, rain. It's super hot weather, super warm. And -2 rolls will have stuff like heavy rain, heavy snow, super extreme temperatures, and like a level 4 would be like tornadoes, bad storms, an earthquake happens, so on. Different types of damage or environmental issues falling. Every 10 feet, it's 8 points of damage. So if you're a person who only has 1 point in your body, you only have 10 points. So your character's nearly dead if they fall. If they get pushed off like a short cliff. Free fall damage. Basically, it's something that will 100% chance of killing you. You then can try and fight it by using your agility plus the roll you get against the challenge rating. Maybe you're falling down a cliff and you're able to grab onto a branch to stop yourself from falling to your death. And how long are you going to stay on that cliff edge, on that branch? I don't know. But yeah, it's just an example. And then it talks about like traps and locks, how they work. Give an example. Maybe you just have a normal lock on your door. You can't pick lock it, but you can probably force it open. Investigating. So it talks about investigations for stories, for the sake of the story. It talks about memory. So this is going to be a bit more Cthulhu-ish. So items and stuff that have been, who have quote unquote seen things or have been in a time where something dramatic happens, they can instill a memory within the item, and a character can try and investigate, try to learn more about the past. So say if your characters come across an item that was held by, say Genghis Khan or something like that, a pendant, they can try and investigate and learn more about it. This can bring on, you do some rolls, but you might learn more about the item. Maybe it's connected to the story. Obviously, you would want to be connected to the story overall in some way. But then, if you fail checks, you might start to be noticed by the Beyond. So it's going to help you to find out more information, which could help you in a further mission down the line, or even on that same mission. I just list a couple of them later on. Investigations, like you're going to try, and if you're, like we said, we're in that small town, there's disturbances somewhere, maybe someone saw something, you talk to them, they tell you it's like Sasquatch is out there, he's attacking people. So it's obviously some sort of monster. You're going to try and find more about it. You might be able to find a weakness about it. You know, maybe that Sasquatch ends up just being a bear, but the bear is something wrong with it. It's not, they're being infected by the Beyond. Truth or lies, you need to try and find out if things are truthful or a lie, or they're false. Occult, faith, ancient, and knowledge, they're basically the types of magic in the world. Combat, so it's going to be quite simple really. You're going to have 2 actions you can take in a round. The type of actions you can take are going to be casting spells, moving, attacking, investigating, picking or interacting with objects and items. That's basically the most straightforward thing ever. Damage types, you're going to have the physical damage, going to damage your health. Sanity, which is going to be attacks by the occult or psychological attacks. Stability is going to be paranormal events. And fate-based magic. Elemental is going to be health damage, including damages from poison, fire, ice, and other stuff like that. Corruption is going to be deals damage to your sanity, stability, and all other resistant types. Critical attacks. Rolling a 12 is crit, and rolling a 2 is a fail. If you roll a 12, you get a crit. Like some of the weapons you might have a crit bonus. Like example of that mace we had, if it had a critical hit to crushing, it will crush a limb or a part of a body, making it useless on an enemy. But the same goes for you. Challenge ratings, you have 5, 8, 12, and 16. So again, everything's going to be rolled 2d6. So you add any modifiers you have with it. And then once you get above that challenge rating, so medium challenge rating 8, we get above 8 in our total rolls with our modifiers, we then pass. You have different status effects. It could be befuddled, reduce the mind aspect 2 until you get a rest. Beyond touched, no healing of any kind is allowed until the source is removed. So essentially you're cursed by something. You have a bleed, it inflicts 3 damage to health for 3 rounds, and there's a bunch of other stuff like that. So it goes down through it. So you can have a lot of stuff going on in this. Movement, combat zones. So again, it's going to be good to have miniatures for this, I think. Better represent things. It has example house and an exterior zone. So you have a lake, you have a forest part, a yard. This leads into the hallway. Hallway. You go down to the basement or enter the living room, dining room, or kitchen. The kitchen. It's just a simple way of showing a most basic outline of how things are. And zones can have different sort of stuff in them. So say we have to go into the basement, there's something in the basement, maybe there's a cult in there. They're after spawning some hellish monster or being or something. And now it is caused, let's say it has an elemental effect in there for some reason. So entities take 2 elemental damage while they're in that zone, and it can be any kind until they leave that zone. That's just an example there. So you can add as many or as few of these, if any at all. So there's different modifiers you can do. So each area can be completely different, and you can have, obviously you don't want to have every area with stuff in it, or else it's just too much. These should be reserved for special areas where there's stuff going on. Maybe like we had the cultist or after doing something, or where the Beyond's after reaching out and plugging itself into something or trying to attack. That area should have something weird with it. Maybe you're out in the forest, there's an unnatural fog around, stuff like that. You then have other types of movements and stuff like that. So you have hiding, flanking, fleeing, charging, and repositioning. So let's just look at one or two of them here. So we look at flanking. So flanking is going to be done when any party, called you or the enemies, control 2 zones. So let's say we go back up here, for example. We're in a small house. The living room and the dining room is now sealed off. We're in here, or our enemies are in here, and we're in here. We can't get out. We're basically trapped. So they're going to be able to flank us. Maybe this is going to give them some sort of bonus to attacking, or makes it harder for us to defend against them. So that's just a simple look at that. But yeah, it's very straightforward. So fleeing an area to escape a combat, you roll your speed to beat the highest enemy that's controlling an area. So say if you have a bunch of cultists which are going to be low CR levels, but then like they summon the beast, which is going to be a high CR level, you then have to try and beat that enemy's CR. Healing is going to be done pretty straightforward. So natural healing is going to be 2 hit points of rest plus your humorous bonus. Straightforward. So therapy restores 1 sanity plus mindfulness bonus per day, and engaging in a favorite pastime. That's sort of up to the GM if they want to add that in or not, because it depends on how you want to play this as well, and what kind of game you want to have. You want to have a more story gamer thing, or you want to have more like episodic Cthulhu sort of stuff. Again, that's going to be up to the DM. Meditation restores stability and potency. And again, same with the favorite pastime thing. That's going to be up to the DM or GM. Like in between missions, say you have a week off or 3 days off between cases, you could tell them what you do in those days, and if you need to heal, you heal, or whatever. So medicine is going to restore 3 times the amount of your healing pool. increases +1 for every wealth class above mundane. So food is going to restore health as well. +2 for every wealth class above mundane. So if you have an advanced, you're going to gain more. Recreational drug use is going to add healing, but if you don't use your drugs, you're going to have a negatives as well. So you're going to be hooked on stuff. You have magical healing, you have instant healing options here. There's more list of sort of injuries you can have and how they're going to affect your character. Brain damage, reduced mind by 1 and take medical disorder. Broken bones, again, maybe if you got hit by that mace we made earlier, your body's going to reduce by 1 and the character must spend 2 actions to perform a single action. Maim the body, reduce the body by 1, and this take the blind state is permanently. So now your character is completely blind, but you can also replace this with like missing a limb or something like that. So there's different stuff you can do. That's for your body injuries, your spirit injuries, your mind injuries, death. If you reach 0 in sanity, health, or stability, it may result in either a death or a rolling to die save, however. But if you reach 0 in a core stat, you are dead no matter what. So say if you got a lot of damage done to you, and it was in your main points, like you got, say you only had 1 in body, but then you took a -1 permanent damage from some sort of effect, you'd then just be outright dead. So it has some sort of concepts for dying and stuff like that. So these are pre-made ones. You can come up with your own. Like you're gonna have like last words, like your famous last words, bleed out. Your character slowly bleeds out, losing a limb. It's not always fatal. Maybe you die from infection, or again you bleed out. Insanity, your character ends themselves. They become a vegetative state. Lots of stuff like that. Stability, martyrdom, a martyrdom that you go into a blaze of glory for any god you believe in. So yeah, it's lots of stuff like this, which is kind of cool. And mutations. Now you can gain mutations. You're going to roll 3d6, and maybe you're interacting with the void, or with the beyond, or maybe one of the cultists, they had something in the room, or you interact with something, and it ended up giving your body a mutation. So, what kind of mutations can you get? So let's look at you're going to gain 1 common monster modifier beyond salvation. You can become claw-handed. You cannot wield weapons, but you can treat your hands as a +3 weapon with an added status effect. Hardened flesh. You gain +4 resistance, body resistance. But you also have a -2. You basically have your mind and spirit resistance reduced by 2. You can regenerate. There's lots of stuff in here, but essentially you're becoming cursed and maimed. Again, gaining levels. We talked about before. When you do, there's no real experience points, but every 2 missions you complete, you're going to gain a level, which is going to give you a +1 bonus core stat and a +2 on aspects. So again, if you only had 1 in body, you can increase your body by 2, and then your hit points will automatically go up by 5, and then you can increase any stat by 1. Oh no, 2 points on aspects. Any aspect here at all, any of these. And then you can also gain 1 of the following benefits. Now this is going to be up to your GM, how they want to do this, if they want to do it at all. So powers from the beyond, you can ask your GM a question about anything in the world. They may choose this as a reward. Maybe you're after learning something from completing a mission, and you're now being imbued with knowledge. A beyond artifact. Maybe you get an artifact from completing your mission. Maybe those cultists who were in that basement, they had some object they were using. You now have that. A gift from a patron. So again, the patron could be anything. You could be gaining from a god. They might give you some points and something, or it could be from the organization you're working with. You now have more points. You now are gain some sort of maybe to give you a new weapon, new armor, access to something you didn't have before. Miraculous recovery, you can remove one injury you may have had. You gain a promotion, gain one extra spending point. This is going to be an increase, a permanent increase to your spending points. Or you can retire a character. But yeah, it talks about creating monsters. This is going to be very similar to creating weapons. So you have your constructs, you're going to have divine or unholy, you have feral type creatures, and they all have a bunch of base stat lines, okay? Each of them are going to be different. You have folklore, you have spirit, you have swarm monsters, you have golems, you have humans, you have undead. They all have a base. But then you have your modifiers. So here you might have a leader modifier. For each of them, for each nearby ally, increase the resistance by +1 for a maximum of a +4. These are common modifiers that you could all have. It goes down more. Legendary modifiers is going to make them even more difficult. And then this is going to increase the difficulty, of course. But then you can also add these other modifiers. You want to make an easy monster. You're going to have a -1 to their attack, to their resistances types, their speed. Hey guys, sorry about that. My recording just stopped, so I had to re-record this bit. So yeah, we have the different sort of difficulties. So what you do is you add this template on top of everything else. So you have, let's say you have your swarming creature, it's quite low. You add a common modifier, unless it's a legendary creature, of course. But then you will then add your difficulty modifier. So you have an easy, a medium, and a challenging, as well as a dangerous. So if you want to make that swarm dangerous, this template goes over its previous one. Increases attack by +3, increases odds resistance, so body, mind, and spirit resistance by +3, speed of +3, an evasion of +3. Healing pool is increased by 15 each. 2 additional modifiers, an extra action, so it gets 3 actions instead of 2, and a +2 to all core stats. So you use that with your core monster, and then you attach your modifiers to it. So that's very simple, very straightforward. And it gives an example of some monsters and guard that people here. So you have your Carrigan Feasters, you have your Guard, Holy Messenger, Haunted Mirror, couple here. You then have your artifacts. So your artifacts are definitely interesting. So your artifacts can be anything. They can be something that you've come across in the world that then essentially have memories attached to them. So think of, you have a Genghis Khan amulet. You can then try and learn about its memories. So it's going to be it's going to be an easy check. So CR5. If you pass that, you learn a quote. Now, it does have 5 different quotes, so you need to make your own. There is a good list of stuff in here. On a CR2, you know, it's an 8 or more. You learn the second quote. On the CR3, you will then learn the third quote and gain a fate point. On a 4, same thing again, you'll gain a fate point. On 5, you will also remove any of its negative effects of the item and gain the ability to speak freely with the previous owner. So you can basically have a conversation and find things about Genghis Khan in this case. But it does have a list of things and how they should work. You can also create gods and stuff like that. Now these artifacts can also be items you found from cultists or other beings, and they can also be as much of a benefit as they are a negative. So we'll just read 1 or 2 of them here to give you an idea. So this one is called Blood Drinker. 2 short-handled blades for personal work, you know, killing obviously. And you have a modifier, the +20 to attack. With each successive hit, it's reduced by 1. So it goes 20, 19, 80, and it counts down. This continues until either the attack stop or it reaches a +1. Also, select 1 extra modifier of choice. That's going to be up to the DM if they want to do that at all. But it has a massive debuff. The player will not know about this. If the blades are not exhausted of all damage, it will be dealt to the user unless they are left in the corpse for 1 round. So let's say you just got them, they're brand new, they have a +20 to hit. You stab a creature, that now becomes a +19. But then you retrieve the blade, like you just stab them, take it out, and that's it. They're dead. You have it in your hand. You will now take 19 points of damage. So that could kill a character very easily. Your people will not know about this. And there's a bunch of memory quotes here. and if you get all of them, you'll then basically get rid of the debuff. It's an interesting way of doing things. You can really create a lot of interesting story stuff here. Also gives your characters a big boost, but can also be a massive negative kick in the funsies, yeah. So you have a bit of fun with that. You can create your own, or again pull off from these. Some of these are going to be historical things, and other things are just made up. But this one's really cool. The Sword of Gut Ripping. It basically has a +5 to hit. It can be commanded to move 2 zones, so you can either hold it and attack with it, or you can use it as like a floating weapon to go around and attack. But there's a problem. It also increases. It also gives bleed damage, but it's a problem. So if you rolled a 1, it says a 1, which is not correct. It should be a 2, but it's just a typo, I think, because you rolled 2d6 for everything. But let's say you roll it, right? Okay, what's going to happen is a creature is going to come out. Essentially a demon, and yeah, it's not going to be good. It can be divine, it could be unholy as well, but you know, make it a demon, have fun with it. It's going to be easy CR, but it's going to have a good health, 25, good amount of like its sanity, as a +4 to attack, as a good evasion, pretty good body resistance and stuff like that. It moves at good speed, so you'll then have a monster in your hands to deal with. So there's a bunch of stuff like that in here. You then have gods, so you can create your own, but it also has literally god. So gods can again give you benefits. Now these are going to be very hard to come across. It's going to be up to the DM if and when they ever do it. The gods are not also like, you obviously have the devil as a god here. You also have like a mountain, a machine. So there's a bunch of them there. And so let's say with God, you get God's grace. You can feel divine energy growing inside you. You have been chosen as a disciple. You merge. You've been chosen as a disciple, and basically you get a heavenly light will surround you. You're given 10 points that will be used in any healing pool. So if you lost a bunch of health, you can gain your health back. If you lost some spirit, you can gain your spirit stuff back, and so on. God's Wrath. Now this is an interesting one. I'm just going to read this and go down to the list to have a look at some of the other ones, and that'll be the video. I'll just talk about some things I like and didn't like. But God's Wrath is an interesting one. So basically, you can feel God's power inside of you, and then it will be unleashed upon your enemies. So what's going to happen is currently create a light in a 3-zone radius, dealing 10 damage, dealing 10 corruption damage to all enemies. If they are non-human, deal double damage, divine light. So basically, it's going to be a bunch of damage, and if they're like non-human or devils, they're going to have double that damage. So that's pretty cool. And there's going to be a bunch of them down here. Again, sorry about this. I have to re-record this separately because for some reason it just stopped recording after a certain amount of time. I don't know why that happened once before. I don't know why it does that. But anyway. But yeah, there's your character sheet, and that's basically it. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. It definitely does have that Call of Cthulhu-ish vibe, but also sort of, I feel, again, I keep saying X-Files, because I feel like that's the way I would play this with a group of people. Like, episodically, you'd have the same characters if they survived, of course. We would have like our Fox character or Mulder, you know. But anyway, play it in the 1980s, 1990s time period. You know, you're not really going to have any cell phones. You might have one or two with some upper people, like fancy people. But like, I think it'd be an interesting way to play it. Beforehand, you're going to create a little mission, a little story, or you can pull from some of the Call of Cthulhu stuff. Create a few creatures, and there you go. Simple, ready to go. But one thing I did not like for sure was the character creation, how it was laid out. How you go through all this here and here and here and here to then get like the actual points you need to assign, to then go back up again, to then like pick your background and all this stuff. That was the only real sort of complaint I really have about this. It's just layout stuff. Really, I would have liked a few example weapons, a few more instead of just the 2 examples, and armor same thing. the weapons and armor creation is very simple, but would it just be handy like to have like I don't know, basic flak jacket or something like that as an armor choice, or just maybe like 5 to 6 have some more mundane, a few sort of middle of the road ones, and then like sort of like specialized ones. I think that would have been good. So you can do just a quick start game, get people in straight away, and it'd be good to have like a small adventure, maybe to have like a release aside thing, a short 20-page adventure or something like that would be good. But yeah, that's really my only problems with it. It's just part of the layout, and it would be good to have a few example pre-made weapons. Again, it takes a few minutes to create them, but just be handy, and a short adventure. So hopefully they release a short adventure alongside this. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you for checking us out. I will talk to you again soon. Thank you, and goodbye.